Back-to-back series wins. Juan Soto goes off in the Subway Series, and now the Mets hit the road with a chance to flip the script on this season. Coming up, I'm joined by WFAN's Danielle McCartan to break it all down from the bats coming alive to who the Mets should be targeting at the deadline. Straight Outta Flushing starts now. All right, time for this week's 7-Line Report. And Mets fans, we've got star power shining bright and a couple of more injuries to deal with too, but let's start with some history that we've got in Flushing. Francisco Lindor, he's headed to the Midsummer Classic and for the first time as a starter in orange and blue. It's been a long time coming for Lindor, who's quietly put together an excellent 2025, displaying power, defense, clutch hits, and leadership. This starting nod isn't just about this season, it's a legacy moment. He's just the third Mets shortstop to ever start in the All-Star game after Bud Harrelson in 1971 and Jose Reyes in 2007. Down on the farm, how about this name to remember? Jonah Tong. The kid was named Eastern League Player of the Month after posting a .93 ERA with 43 strikeouts in just 29 innings, and he didn't allow a single home run through his 5 starts in June. That's video game level dominance there, folks. And with the Mets rotation currently in flux, you never know when he might get the call. More on that later in the show. And on that note, sadly, the injury bug continues to bite the Mets as they place both Paul Blackburn and Danielle Nunez on the IL this week. Blackburn, he's dealing with a back issue, while Nunez has elbow inflammation. That's 2 more bodies down in a pitching rotation that's already trying to patch things together. And the Mets did have a couple of other guys make the All-Star team, joining Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso also makes the squad to go along with closer Edwin Diaz. Notably, Juan Soto did not make the team for the Mets. So to recap, Lindor, he's an all-star starter. Soto's June, straight fire, folks. Tom, he's the talk of the farm right now, but the injuries, they keep coming. We'll keep you posted on the latest Mets news right here on Straight Outta Flushing. All right, this week on Dugout Discussions, you see her right here. I'm joined by WFAN's own Danielle McCartan, a voice that Mets fans, they know very well. And we're going to talk about the team's turnaround this week, Juan Soto's swagger returning, and how the front office should approach the trade deadline. So let's jump into it. We have Danielle right here in studio. And Danielle, I have to say this. First of all, welcome to Straight Outta Flushing. I appreciate that. It's a bunch of firsts here. I feel like anytime I do a show, you're involved with the first in it. It's some way. You were my first guest on Rapid Rundown in the studio. You were the first guest on this show in the studio and the first female guest. So welcome.
All the firsts.
All the firsts for you. How are you doing? How was your July 4th weekend?
Hey, it was good. Doing a lot of work. And this is my last of all of the work and ready to get going here. Let's do it. How was yours?
Mine was good. I was working too, as you were doing a lot of busy stuff, but had some good time with family and friends. So I can't really complain about it.
How many hot dogs can you eat in 10 minutes?
I don't want to know. In 10 minutes?
Yeah, Joey Chestnut. Mine's 1. My answer is 1.
My answer is probably 3. But I don't want to do that.
Yes,
no. I'm not going to feel good after 3.
Nope.
I don't know how Joey Chestnut does it. I've interviewed him about it. I've talked to him. I'm not going to try to do that. So 1, that's a smart move. I'll just say that's a smart move. Let's talk about the Mets.
Yeah.
Let's start with the big picture here because they just took back-to-back series against the Brewers and the Yankees. Things were really bad before that. They had a pretty brutal June. We saw them lose 13 out of 17 games. Yeah. How much do you think this past week, or what we saw at the end of the week with the Brewers and the Yankees, changed the temperature around this team?
I mean, look, the Yankees are a good team. And for the Mets to come in and take 2 out of 3 games from the Yankees, and maybe even it was close to being a third today as well. It was close to a sweep. Sure. But I just think that this is a total confidence builder for the New York Mets. They were stumbling, as you said, as you greatly outlined there. But they were struggling. They came in. They took care of business. I mean, Juan Soto was doing his thing. Pete Alonso on Saturday just kept the Yankees. As soon as they were getting close, he hit 2 home runs and just kept it out of reach for them. So you're seeing a lot of good things happen for the Mets. They've got their starting pitching, reinforcements on the way. Minaya, Senga, things are starting to come together for the Mets, and I expect to see, over the next 2 series. As I looked, they're playing teams that are either at or below 500. I expect. Is it unreasonable to expect 2 more sweeps from this Mets team moving forward into the All-Star break? 2 teams under 500? I think they can do it.
It would be nice if they could do that. Because I think there's going to be some people who are a little skeptical. They're going to say, okay, 2 out of 3 against the Brewers, 2 out of 3 against the Yankees. I think it matters that they won those series. I do. But some people are going to say, all right, we want to see more. We want to see you build upon this. There's still questions about the pitching staff and their health. We will get to that. But let's talk offense. Because the offense does look a little bit different right now. And I know the fans know this too. They're scoring early, hitting for power, staying aggressive. What's been the biggest shift that you've seen in their approach in these last 2 series where they've been able to score some runs?
2 things pop out. I look at the Mets and, we were arguing at my cousin's house on Saturday at the barbecue about the Juan Soto bunt. Should he have done it? But whether or not he should have done it or not, the Mets have committed themselves to the small game, the bunting game, the small ball over the last, couple games or so. And it's proven itself. Starling Marte laid one down today.
Yeah.
And that was another great thing to see. I love small ball, and I just wish more teams would do it, and the Mets are finally embracing that. The other thing is when the lineups came out, I was on the fan live and reading the lineups. The bottom third of that Mets lineup has been a black hole.
Yeah.
And so what Mendoza or whoever, the statisticians or whoever, I'd like to think it's Mendoza, what he did was he put Jeff McNeil in the 8 hole today. And it worked. I was getting ready to come into New York, and I don't know exactly what inning it was, but what happened was Jeff McNeil kept the inning going. Instead of being at 1, 2, 3 outs at the end, then the lineup turned over to the top, which we know is very potent. So I think that was a fantastic under-the-radar type move that he puts Jeff McNeil in the 8 hole to turn over the lineup in almost that same inning. So 2 things, the commitment to the small ball and the fact that they're kind of dispersing the talent throughout the lineup, I think is going to work for them.
I love that you brought up that point because I think they do need to be more committed to the small ball. They've been way too home run heavy. Now, look, we know it's come from the top of the lineup. They have 4 players on pace to hit 31 home runs.
Sure.
That's never happened in Mets history before.
Sure.
That would be amazing. But you start to need something on the bottom lineup. If Jeff McNeil can help down there, even if it's just get a hit and turn the lineup over,
Yes.
I think that is a good move by Carlos Mendoza. All right, we got, this is controversial, at least on the Yankee side, right? Because Yankee fans, they're still salty about Juan Soto. So we got to talk about Juan Soto. I see my producer, Nick, he is shaking his head. This at least felt, from watching Juan Soto, right? Like it felt like a different version of him here in this Subway Series. What stood out to you the most about the way he played this weekend as opposed to earlier in the season? Because it's completely different from the first Subway Series where he went 1 for 10 and just 1 hit, did nothing with runners in scoring position. What stood out to you the most about how you played this weekend?
I was there. I was there at Yankee Stadium when they came to town. When they were playing together in the first time. So, I just think Juan Soto is a hugely emotional player. I don't think that's a bad thing and not a negative thing. It just is what it is. And so, when the people were coming in and booing him and turning their backs on him, and he just wants to be liked, man. He's just going out there like, what the heck, man? What the heck's going on? So I think that affected him. I really do think that he took it to the plate and it affected him. Now. The game is now at Citi Field in Queens. It's his home field now. It's his home crowd, the support from the crowd. And not to mention, he's been seeing the ball like a beach ball coming in, no doubt about it. So I just think there's a level of confidence in Juan Soto that exists now on July 6th that did not exist my birthday weekend, May 17th. There's been a shift in the confidence. There's been a shift in something inside that clubhouse, I would venture to guess, where, maybe that team meeting that they had with the closed-door team meeting. Yep. Maybe he finally grew into his own and was like, hey, look, well, wait a second. I have a voice here, and people are going to listen to me. So maybe he took on more of a leadership role inside the clubhouse. I think something changed so that the offensive and output could proliferate, I guess the right word is.
Yeah, I wonder if people, I say people, I mean all of us, right? Media, fans, thought about how much of an adjustment this would be for him.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought, okay, it was just going to be smooth and he'll come over to Flushing. He was in the Bronx last year and it'll be that.
Yeah.
It shows you with Soto, the Mets, it's a long season. You sometimes got to let things play out. Now, speaking of the offense, how crucial is it in your eyes that the Mets sustain this level of offense? They've been putting up some runs.
Yeah.
And do you think what we've seen these past 6 games or so, this is the kind of production they're going to need if they get to October and want to be successful in October?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, there's question marks in that starting pitching rotation. I mean, you look at Senga coming off injury. He seems to be injured every single season. You've got Minaya, who hasn't thrown a pitch yet. What is he going to look like? Then the big concern for me in that pitching rotation, which I'm sure we'll also talk about, but it's Clay Holmes. He's thrown 93 innings so far this season, Dexter. That is the most he's ever pitched in a single season at the major league level, ever. So there are concerns, like what does the longevity look like for Clay Holmes? What does the wear and tear look like on Clay Holmes going into October? The Mets are going to make the postseason, no doubt about it. So why is the offense important? Because you need to generate runs. You can't be throwing these guys out there with one-run leads or even behind. You pitch differently when you're behind. So the run support from especially 1 through 5 in that lineup is for sure going to help out hand in hand the starting pitching, which to me it looks a little shaky. I think the Mets are going to need to go shopping at the trade deadline for starting pitching.
Yeah, we're going to get to that about what the Mets need to do at the deadline, because that's going to be a huge topic of conversation on this show as we move forward. But I want to get to the rotation, because you just mentioned that up, right? The injuries, they keep piling up. Paul Blackburn on the IL now. That happens. How worried are you about the Mets starting pitching and their depth in the starting pitching heading into the second half? I know Manaea is scheduled to come back soon. Senga, both guys could be back before the All-Star break. But the depth still has to be a concern, right?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a concern, because then you think of, okay, if the pitchers go 4 innings, then you run to the bullpen, and then there's a bullpen burnout. And then you got Edwin Diaz waiting there with his trumpet in hand, and he's never going to get into a game because you can't have the bridge to get to him. So it all plays hand in hand. It starts with this. I'm an old school baseball kind of person. I hate the bullpen type games. I hate when the starting pitchers go 4 innings and you call it a great day. It's not. They have to pitch like 5 or 6 at least for me to like it. So look, the depth at the starting pitching rotation for the New York Mets is something I would definitely it would concern me, given the fact that they've been leaning on Clay Holmes. So David Peterson and Clay Holmes have been their 2 best pitchers. He's at 93 innings already. So that's a concern for me moving forward. Can he sustain it? I mean, I'm knock on wood. I hope he does.
Right.
But this is uncharted territory. So you need to continue to build. You can never have enough pitching. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but that's what the Mets really need to be focusing on at this trade deadline.
Let me just follow up with something you said about Holmes that I find rather interesting, because he's at that 93 inning mark, right? And I think you bring up a great point. You don't know how he's going to handle the increased workload. Yeah. So how do you think the Mets should play that with him? Should they reduce the number of innings that he pitched? Are you going to see 4 inning pitch games by him? Or do you think they need to see if they can stretch him out longer, at least when they get to August and September? How would you play that if you were managing?
What I would do is, I don't like the 4 inning game. It puts undue stress on the bullpen. What I would do is I would switch or have a set 6-man rotation. Kodai Senga likes the 6-man rotation. Like it would prevent Clay Holmes from going out there every 5th day. Now it's every 6th day on the back end. That will pay dividends. But that's the short solution I would do. 6-man rotation, done deal, that's it.
I'm a fan of the 6-man rotation. I always have been.
Yeah.
It puts less stress on the bullpen, puts less stress on your starting pitcher.
Yeah.
I know some starters don't like it. They like going every 5 days, but it's about the best thing for the team long term. Now, speaking of adding players, the Mets have reportedly expressed interest in right-hander Mitch Keller from the Pirates. Do you think he'd be the right kind of addition to help stabilize this rotation?
So the problem for the Mets and for the Yankees with the Clark Schmidt injury is that there's not a lot of starting pitching out there. First of all, I believe that the trade deadline should be moved back. There are still many teams in like limbo that think they're still in it, not quite sure if they're sellers. So that kind of puts the pool onto these same couple teams, the Pirates, the Marlins, and et cetera. So when you're looking at those teams and who could be available, which I did, the Orioles even, there's not much there. There's not much of a pool. I mean, you look at a guy like, what's his name, from Miami, Alcantara.
Yep.
Okay, you look at him, and his ERA is astronomical, and you're like, okay, well, maybe the Mets could fix him, right? But there's a stat, and you know that I love this one. It's called fielding independent pitching.
Yeah.
And what that is, it's abbreviated FIP, F-I-P. And what it is it's a formula that takes out all of the stuff that's not in control, the pitcher's control. So, like, if you have a crappy field behind you, the ERA affects you, but the FIP doesn't. And Alcantara's is high. I looked at a few different guys. Eflin, his is high. So what you're looking at is probably an overpay for a not so great starting pitcher, and it's a bad spot to be in. Out of all of the ones that I kind of just briefly kind of perused that would be on the market, Keller's going to be the best option, and he's not great, but
he's a sub-4 ERA. He's been fine.
A 3 guy, a 4 guy maybe in a rotation he could be. But what is it that you're going to have to give up to get him? Because he is, in my opinion, the best at this point the best on the market.
You brought up something I don't think I've actually really ever spoken about this on any of my shows. I hadn't thought about it too deeply, but once they expanded the playoff format, it's a good thing, or it's a good suggestion by you that, yeah, maybe we should move the trade deadline back to, I don't know, second week in August. Because you're right, some teams are going to believe that they're really in this.
Right.
And they're not. And you don't have a big of a pool of players to choose from.
Right.
And if you're those teams, whether you're the Pirates, the Marlins, you mentioned the Orioles, you're going to jack the price up.
Of course you are.
On those players, because supply and demand.
And if you're a bubble team too, and then you end up, the trade deadline has passed, and you end up going down after that, you're like, well, I could have sold at the deadline, or you know what I mean. So I just think the game of baseball would benefit by what's August 15th. How's that?
I don't mind it. I'm here for it. I like it. I think it'd be good for baseball in general, and it'd also be good for the trade talk and everything around it, and for us who do content and talk about sports. It'd be amazing too. Is there anybody else you would have on your short list of pitchers? Because it's not a lot, right? Like, I've thought about this too. I was talking about this with Nick Pollack a couple weeks ago on the show. We were talking about the Mets pitching, but he thought the Mets should absolutely be buyers at the deadline. I get the vibe that you think they should be buyers in terms of pitchers at the deadline, but we mentioned Keller, we mentioned Alcantara. Anybody else on that list?
I looked at Charlie Morton, didn't impress me much, like Shania Twain. Like, you know what? And the move that David Stearns should have already made was bring up Brandon Sproat from the minor leagues. That should have already happened. It didn't. It hasn't.
So, on that note, and I have something for everybody to stick to in the show. There's a segment coming up later about what Danielle just mentioned about Stearns possibly bringing up the kids. I want you to expound on that a little bit more. Why do you think that he should bring up the kids? I believe that it's the time. I don't think you can wait. I know he likes to have a long runway so the guys can develop, but the way they've been decimated and they need the depth, I think the time is now.
The time is now. I agree with you. And even today, the third game of the Subway Series, you're looking for the sweep of the Yankees, right? You're the Mets, and you want to sweep the Yankees right out of town. You know, you want to, for the season, you want to come ahead of the Yankees, 4-3, whatever it is. Right now they're tied, so it's 3-3. So if you're the Mets and you've been decimated by injuries, you don't have the luxury of picking and choosing what time you can bring this guy up. And it's not bring up all the kids and see what happens. And, it's the Mets have a good nucleus of guys on this team. They need pitching help. And in game 3 today, Sunday, you're looking at this going, okay, the Mets are having a bullpen game. If they had maybe Brandon Sproat, he might have been better than, and he could have given you 5 or 6 innings instead of 3 or 4. Who knows? He had 2 lights out starts at the minor league level. The past 2 have been lights out. Why is he not at the major league level? Are they manipulating his service time? That raises a question in my mind. I don't know. But it should have happened already. That's my point of view.
No, I'm with you on this. Speaking of things that should have happened already, I think this is where we got to go when we talk about the Mets and the trade deadline. If you're David Stearns, and I'm putting everything on the table here, Danielle. We're talking pitching, we're talking fielding, hitting. Is this the time to make a move right now where we are in early July before the All-Star break, or do you hold off until the deadline when you know the price is going to be high, the price is going to go up, right? The price is going to go up. You know things and teams are going to be more aggressive in trying to either buy or sell.
Yeah.
So is now the time for David Stearns to strike?
Well, I think it would what Brian Cashman did, and I don't remember the date of it, but he got Jazz Chisholm Jr. well before the trade deadline, and I thought that was a great move because he addressed the need at that moment. The Mets need to address a need for pitching or bullpen help now in this moment. But it always takes 2 to tango, don't forget. And these Marlins and the Pirates and all these teams are like holding on to their cards, and they're like, well, wait a second. We know you want what we have, so we're going to make you wait for it. So that's why I say bring up Brandon Sproat from the minor leagues, so you don't have to depend on anybody else to raise the level of your pitching staff. I would like the move to have made already in a New York Minute, done already. Right. But I do understand reasonably that there are 2 teams to tango. You need a second team to make the deal, and those teams that are already done and packed it in, they're not willing to do that because they're willing to wait until the deadline to get the best possible deal moving forward.
That's tough, but I know Mets fans, you're right. I think they would have wanted tomorrow yesterday. They would like another player, another pitcher here now so they can feel a little bit more comfortable, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so 2 big series wins for the Mets. That's nothing to poo-poo. But now they're heading out to Baltimore for 3, and then they go to Kansas City for 3 before the All-Star break. In your eyes, what's the biggest key to the Mets keeping this momentum going right through July as they head to the second half of the season?
It's just, for me, it's the lineup. It's 1 through 5 getting the job done, and Jeff McNeil in the 8 hole. Maybe he's going to stay there. I love it. I like that. So when there's, hitting and production and small ball being played and runs being manufactured, that is when the Mets are the best. It doesn't matter who's on the mound if they're scoring 12 runs like they did the other day against the Yankees. The Orioles are not a great team. They are bottom of the barrel in the AL East. Who would have thought? And then I think I heard today they're on their 6th catcher for the season, which is crazy. So it's not unreasonable to expect the Mets to sweep the Orioles, and then they go to Kansas City. I say take 2 out of 3 from the Kansas City Royals. I don't know if Seth Lugo was lining up. I looked into him too, by the way. He would be all right. I would take Seth Lugo back, but it's not unreasonable for me to look at the schedule ahead of them leading up to the break and say, okay, they could sweep the Orioles and they could take 2 out of 3 from the Royals, and then you are riding high if you're rooting for the Mets.
Oh yeah, you'll be feeling good if you're the Mets. If you're heading into the All-Star break 5-1, Mets fans will take that because look, a week ago it was not good. Mets fans were down bad. It was not good, but the vibes, they're feeling pretty good after a couple of series wins. Yeah. You feel good about this Mets team and where you think they can go? You think they'll get the ship right and be fine? Because it was not good, as I said in June. But do you think they'll be fine when it's all said and done?
They'll make the postseason. That lineup will propel them into the postseason.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I wasn't going to go beyond that. Just can they get to the postseason?
I'm looking at this starting pitching rotation. I'm looking at David Stearns. I don't have a ton of confidence in David Stearns. We'll see what he can do at the deadline.
You're looking at this as a big deadline for him.
Yeah, it's a huge deadline for him. And I call him small market Stearns. Those that know me know that I do that.
I know you do that.
This is the time for him to make a big move. And let's see if he can get it done.
And to be fair, some people are going to say, well, Danielle, he's made moves in terms of getting Juan Soto, but you want to see it done with a trade in season.
Look, he had the black card. He had Steve Cohen's black card. When people told me up,
he was shopping differently, right?
Yeah, and when people are calling me up, they're like, "Oh yeah, Steve Cohen went out and got Juan Soto." No one ever gives credit to David Stearns because it was Cohen money that got him there to begin with. It was a bidding war Cohen wanted. That was it. So I want to see that signature move from David Stearns to say, like, okay, this guy's out of Milwaukee. He's in New York now. That's what I want to see this trade deadline.
I think Mets fans would like to see it too. That's going to be a great topic of conversation for us on this show as we talk more about the Mets going forward. That is Danielle McCartan. Check her out on WFAN. She does a great job. And when Mets fans call her to vent about what's going on, she's somebody you definitely want to talk to. Danielle, appreciate you. Be the first in-studio guest for Straight Outta Flushing.
This is fun. Anytime.
Fun. That's good. You talked about Mets. You didn't get angry. You put a demand on small market Stearns, and everything's going to be okay. Appreciate you.
Hopefully you're right.
Hopefully it is okay. All right, it's time for this week's Mets Mention, where we round up the wildest, the weirdest, and the most wholesome things from across Mets social media. And we're starting off with a story only Keith Hernandez could tell. On the Mets broadcast last week, Steve Gelbs, the sideline reporter, showed how bench coach John Gibbons uses a suction cup that looks like a plunger to pick up baseballs in the batting cage. Then Keith shared a story that the rest of the broadcast crew probably didn't want to think about.
He doesn't want to bend over to pick up the baseballs anymore, so look at that. Look at that little device he has, a little suction cup to pick up the balls.
Whoever thought your toilet plunger would work in baseball?
I actually had to use my plunger a couple days ago.
We really don't want to hear about that, Keith.
It was very effective.
Apparently, Keith has never heard of TMI. A little too much sharing there, and he's the captain of oversharing, of course, in that broadcast booth. But either way, shout out to John Gibbons for finding an effective way to pick up baseballs. That's really effective. Love what he did there. Meanwhile, Citi Field, they got petty in the best way possible this week, unleashing a filter that digitally put a Mets hat over Yankee fans wearing Yankees hats during the game. Now, you walk in wearing pinstripes, the Mets video board is going to put you on blast. You see how one of the fans of the Yankees didn't like this move by the Mets. Super petty, I get it, but look, I love it. I'm here for the petty. Nothing is wrong with bringing a little shame to the ops at Citi Field. And to wrap things up, a moment that'll warm even the saltiest fan's heart. Francisco Lindor's family reacts to his first All-Star start as a Met. Pure joy, got some tears, hugs, celebration. You can see just how much this meant to his whole family. And if you're a Mets fan, it hits even harder knowing how much it means to him to share this moment with his two little ladies right there. Pretty cute moment. So we got plungers, petty filters, which I'm here for, pure family vibes. Mets Social stayed entertaining all week long. That's it for this edition of Mets Mention. We'll see you in the comments. All right, the Mets, they've been playing rotation roulette all season long. Right now, they're running out of names to spin. Griffin Canning, done for the year. Tyler McGill, elbow strain. Sean Manaea, he's still rehabbing. And Frankie Montas, he's had a roller coaster return. So here's the final out this week. It's time to bring up a prospect, period. Let's start with Jonah Tom, the most electric arm in the minors right now. A 1.81 ERA, 125 strikeouts, a ridiculous 141 batting average against, and a 40.8% strikeout rate. That's the highest in the minors. Tom, he's flat out dominating. But if the Mets want someone closer to ready, how about Nolan McClain? He's been holding his own in Syracuse, 2.80 ERA over nearly 55 innings, and he's a strikeout machine with that two-sport toughness. Sure, the walks are high with him, but the stuff is absolutely legit. And then you have Brandon Sproat, who's been in AAA for a while now. The ERA, it's a bit bloated, but the opponent batting average is just 211, and he's been battle-tested against better lineups. Look, when you take all of this together, I get it. David Stearns doesn't want to rush these guys, but this isn't about rushing. It's about survival. You can't go through the next month with a patchwork rotation held together with Velcro and hope. That's not going to work. The Mets need stability, excitement, and some options. So give us a Tom start. Let McClain take a turn, or give Sproat a chance to grow on the job, because at this point, the biggest risk is doing nothing. The clock is ticking in Flushing, and the kids, they might just be the answer. That's a wrap for this week's show. Thanks to my producer, Erica Block, associate producer, Nick Federico, editor, Corey Porter, and production assistant, Tommy Cohen. I'm Dexter Henry. We're going to return next week with another edition, Straight